Assalamualaikum and good afternoon. Okay, so we don't have tea of time today. So let me go straight. Okay, we have plenty more topics to go. Agak belakang juga sebenarnya in week 10 now, right? So, and these investment bonds, okay, investment in bonds requires quite a lot juga, to be honest with you. Okay, but we're going to focus more on the idea in terms of what is bond is all about, some basic features, and the most important part in terms of the valuation of bonds. So I need all 3 hours today and also tomorrow. So for today, just a bit about the introduction, the features, and also the characteristics maybe. And kalau sempat sampai the types juga. And for tomorrow, mostly we're going to discuss more on the valuation. Okay. So first things first, when we talk about bond, okay, we have to understand the basic idea and also the definition of bond based on a few criteria. Okay, number one, first keyword here is long term. It is a, if I can write, this is a long term fixed income security. So there are two components here. One is a long term, second is a fixed income. Okay, what does it mean? So bond are referring to a types of instruments, okay, type of instrument that will last, or when we talk about last here means the duration of the contract, usually between 5 to 30 years on average. Okay, 5 to 30 years. So meaning the issuer, whoever sells the bond, will offer the bonds for, like I said, minimum 5 years to 8 to 30 years punya contract. And throughout the time, between the contract, the issuer, which is the seller of the bond, will have to pay the investor a fixed income return. So fixed income here means static, static, or fixed, ataupun apa lagi the terms that we can use, constant lah, you can say constant. How to join in. Okay. Right. So I repeat, the definition define bonds as a long term, number one. It must be between 5 to 30 years. And second, fixed income. So meaning the return will come in the form of a constant return. So meaning if the contract specify, okay, the return is 5%, for example, so that 5% will remain constant throughout 5 to 30 years. So it will not change. Unlike some other types of investment, for example, investment in stocks ataupun shares sebelum ni, the return can change every year. Okay, especially based on the performance of the company. Okay, but for bond, regardless what happened, the issuer, which is the seller of the bond, needs to pay fixed income returns throughout the tenure. Okay, and satu lagi component when we talk about bond ni, just imagine the issuer tadi akan jual bond, and the investor will buy the bonds for a long-term period. Okay, but from payments point of view, there are two components. Okay, the payment satu is in a form of interest ataupun usually when we talk about interest, income payment This income payment is referring as interest ataupun mostly it will known as coupon payment. Okay, coupon payment. So this coupon payment will be paid annually ataupun sometimes semi-annually, and this coupon payment akan kekal ataupun fixed throughout the tenure. And at the end of the contract, let's say after 5 years, the issuer will pay the principal. Okay, the principal at maturity. Okay, principal at maturity meaning kalau di kontrak 5 tahun, at the 5th year, issuer ni tadi akan bayar every single thing in one go lah as a lump sum payment. Okay, so kejap lagi maybe ada satu diagram that I can share with you that you can see it clearer lah, the relationship between issuer and also investor of the bond, how the money flows from one end to the other end, and how the issuer have to pay the relevant payments lah in terms of the coupon payment and together with the principal. Okay, so therefore the parties involved in this bond transactions is between two parties, mainly the issuer, the bond issuer, number one. Ataupun we can letak this sebagai seller lah, seller of the bond, penjual bond. And we have the other party, the bondholder. Okay, so these are the investor or the buyer of the bond. So usually from bonds transactions point of view, it will come out first from the seller. So seller ni siapa? Seller ni usually either corporate or even government lah. So katakanlah corporate bond corporate company like Petronas for example. They want to have 100 million ringgit. They need 100 million ringgit. Okay, for new project. Okay, so 1 juta ni dapat kat mana? Obviously they can go to the bank. Contohnya kalau nak pinjam. Okay, but alternatively, this corporate with big valuation to their title can opt for another option which is bond. So dia jual lah bond ataupun attract investor. Okay, I need 100 million. So I'm selling this bond with 5% return. So the investor on this other side will become the buyer of that bond. Okay, bond ni, if you can imagine, it's just a certificate. Okay, certificate dengan information dalam certificate tu dia akan specify how much is one certificate worth and what will be the rate of return, together how long it will mature. So dia akan letak kat situ maturity juga. Okay, so those three important elements will be stated in the certificate lah. Okay, and if the bondholder ataupun the investor interested, they will buy the bond. Okay, pay lah, let's say 1,000 ringgit, one certificate, and they will become the bondholder. So as a bondholder, as investor, they entitled to receive the payment tadi lah, the coupon payment every year, and then they will receive back the principal value of the certificate at maturity. So kalau 5 tahun, they have to wait lah 5 years untuk dapat balik. So kalau dia beli ataupun dia spend, let's say 100,000 ringgit for that particular investment, so setiap tahun dia akan dapat returns. Okay, but that 100,000, they will only get it back at maturity. Okay, so that's why in the market, it's also known as the fixed income securities because the payments are fixed. And in Malaysia specifically, it is also known as the loan stocks. Okay, so loan stock ni adalah the terms that they use in Bursa Malaysia referring to bonds. Okay, the loan stocks. Right. So some of these I already mentioned. These are long-term fixed income securities issued either the corporates or the government. So corporates ni can be, as I mentioned lah, all the big corporations like Petronas, Maybank, Genting, whoever lah who needs funding. Okay, so they will become the issuer. And obviously government also can be part of the issuer as well. So you boleh dengar banyak government bond yang ada lah. Okay, and the issuer dalam bahasa lain, they are the borrower, peminjam. Okay, as I mentioned before, one of the option kalau dia tak cukup funding, dia pergi bank dan dia pinjam dengan bank. Okay, but alternatively, big corporation likes to use bond instead of going to the bank because the rate, the borrowing rates, like I can say, is much cheaper using bond instead of go to the bank. So that's why company besar ni prefer to use bond instead of borrowing money from the bank. Okay, so these issuers, okay, either corporates or governments, will borrow fund from the investor. Remember tadi, investor ni siapa? These are the bondholders lah. Bondholders with a promise, okay, to pay interest. Again, I recap balik interest ni apa. Interest ni adalah coupon tadi. Coupon, C-O-U-P-O-N, coupon. And they're gonna return the principal at maturity. Alright, so recent update as of 2024, okay, Malaysian bond market size was about 2 trillion ringgit. So imagine the value is huge. 2 trillion, bukan billion, it's trillion. And out of these bonds, okay, of 2 trillion outstanding, ini maknanya jumlah yang dah terjual di pasaran. We have sukuk. Okay, what is sukuk? Sukuk ni dalam bahasa mudah dia, kalau we talk in English speaking countries ataupun the Western countries, sukuk simply mean Islamic bond lah. Okay, Islamic bond representing about 63% of issuance. So maknanya in Malaysia, for the bond market, it is controlled ataupun dominance by the Islamic bond ataupun sukuk ni tadi. So more than 50%, meaning more than half lah as of 2024. And this confirm Malaysia as the world's largest sukuk market. So memang dalam Islamic finance, okay, kalau kita cerita pasal banking, mungkin in terms of the value of the assets, Malaysia, even though one of the pioneer and also one of the earlier users and players when we talk about Islamic finance, Islamic banking, but in terms of the value of assets, kita kalah lah. The value of our asset is not as big as counterparts in the Middle East. Contohnya Middle East, you know, Saudi Arabia, apa lagi? Saudi Arabia, the Gulf yang lain lah. Saudi Arabia, we have Dubai contohnya, United Arab Emirates, Qatar. Those countries are rich kan, with abundance of oil money. So therefore their banking are quite rich in terms of the assets. So that's why from Islamic banks point of view, their assets much higher than us. Tapi dari segi bond issuance, when company or corporates like to issue bonds to raise funds, Malaysia is the largest one. Okay, kita sebagai, sebab nama pun borrowing kan, so that's why maybe in the Middle East they're not that big because most of the companies don't requires a lot of borrowings perhaps. Ada je transaction yang melibatkan borrowings in the Middle East, but as of now we are still the largest sukuk market lah, not bond market. Bond market, then talk about bond, a lot of countries kat negara-negara maju yang lain, they have a lot of issuance juga lah. Tapi when specifically about sukuk, Malaysia is the number one lah. Okay, ni semua tak ya. Right, advantages and disadvantages. Okay, so the cost of raising fund through bonds is relatively less expensive. So that's why I said tadi, one of the advantage kenapa big companies, big corporates like to use bond instead of borrowing money from the bank, because of the rates. Okay, rates dia murah. Okay, rate dia murah, cheaper, because kalau kita pergi dekat bank will dictate, okay, if you want to borrow from us, bank said, okay, pay us X% of interest ataupun X% of profit rates. Tapi from bonds issuing point of view, dia kena decide berapa dia nak bayar. Okay, the better dia punya bonds rating, the lower usually the rates ataupun the profit rates they have to pay back in terms of the coupon. So one of the thing kenapa corporates like to issue bond, because they can lower the cost of borrowing. Okay, that's number one. Secondly, maybe sebab the payment of coupon ni are tax deductible. Okay, payment of coupon through interest ni are tax deductible. So meaning dia dah lah bayar payment kepada dia punya bondholders, and that payment amount tu will be deducted from tax purposes. This coming back to the income statement lah. Kalau you tengok dalam income statement, partial income statement, when you reach sampai earning before interest and taxes, ataupun nama dia operating profit kan, when you reach sampai operating profit, you gonna minus the interest, okay, before you get the earning before tax. Okay, and then baru you bayar tax. This is partial income statement lah. So this interest kat sini including the bond payments. So meaning from the operating profit, bila company tu bayar all the interest together with the bond punya interest, so the EBT value will reduce. So kalau kat sini katakanlah sini 500,000 contoh lah. So bila tolak interest 100,000, so the EBT left with 400k. So tax, katakanlah tax tu 24%. 24% ni is based on this 400k. They not use 500k as our reference. So the tax will be based on the 400,000. So they save 500k ni from tax payment. So that's why if they have this bonds tax ataupun bonds punya coupon as part of their payment, dia akan mengurangkan lah the cost of tax to the company. So as comparison, kalau selain daripada guna bond, dia boleh guna share. Okay, they raise fund using shares. So share punya payment, dividend contohnya, dividend is not tax deductible. So dividend still, walaupun dia dah bayar, dia berlaku at the end. So dia tak affect dia punya tax payment. So tax dia still kena bayar full amount. So this is again why some company might prefer bond issuance lah in order to reduce dia punya tax liability. Okay, so when the market interest rate is down, bonds are always the best alternative for raising long-term funds rather than selling stocks, because people tends to like to have bond as part of their portfolios. But bonds ni, as I mentioned, the return dia fixed kan. So bila market interest rate turun pun, bond akan bayar pada rate yang sama. They will not change according to the interest rate in the market. Okay, because their rates are fixed. So companies ataupun investment companies, investment management companies like to have bond as part of the portfolio, sebab kita boleh estimate lah, okay, this percentage of our fund will get these returns, because whatever happen in the market, kita akan dapat a fixed return. So this is another advantage lah if we have bonds. So that's why dalam managing a portfolio, okay, you need to have some elements of fixed return as part of your investment portfolio. Okay, mungkin bukan 100%, maybe 20%, 30% depending on your risk profile. So it is good to have this fixed return punya investment as part of your portfolio lah. Another advantage, this is all from issuing bonds punya point of view. So maknanya from issuer punya point of view. Maknanya from corporates punya point of view, yang jual bond ni adalah antara advantage dia. Next is in terms of interference. Sebab bila kita issue bond, kita melibatkan orang luar. Okay, so the bond holders yang beli bond kita ni akan enjoy all the interest payment, coupon dengan principal at maturity tu. But they will not interfere because they don't have voting rights. They do not have voting rights. Unlike contohnya share investment. If you sell shares, for example, you jual share IPOs to the investor in the market, the investor have voting rights. So bila dia ada voting rights, dia boleh interfere. So dia kena kita kena invite dia masuk kita punya annual general meeting, AGMs. They can vote members of the board of directors. So ada interference kat situ lah. So as the owner of the company, you can allow this interference to happen kalau issuing using using shares. Tapi kalau they issue using bonds, you will have no interference from outsiders lah, basically. So you have more control lah if you use bond instead of shares. And the last one here, the issuer's obligation just based on the fixed return ataupun fixed payment tadi lah. So kalau company you perform extremely well that year, katakanlah your profit generated multifolds daripada apa yang biasanya berlaku, your requirement just to pay the fixed return. You tak perlu bayar lebih pun, even though your profits for that particular year is high. Okay, tak perlu bayar extra basically. Kalau menggunakan bond lah, kalau you stated in the contract, okay, I will pay you 4% return for 5 years, so 4% lah. So kalau tahun tu you generate profit yang berlipat kali ganda pun, you don't have to pay more. Tapi kalau we talk about shares, the higher the profits, the higher the dividends the investor will expect lah. Okay, sebab dividen tu bergantung kepada profit. So kalau profit tinggi, dividen selalunya investor akan harapkan pulangan dividen yang tinggi juga. Okay, that's for share investment. Okay, tapi for bond, as a bondholder, you tak boleh expect more lah. So if you have 4%, so 4% lah throughout the tenure. So from issuing point of view, you can save return kat situ lah when you get higher profits. Okay, tetapi from disadvantage point of view, the interest payment, the coupon tadi is a compulsory payment. Okay, it is a compulsory. So if you fail to pay, you can be forced into bankruptcy. Ni cuma forced into bankruptcy ni worst case scenario lah. Maksudnya kat sini, they can bring this matter to the court kalau you tak bayar. Okay, ni macam you bagi pinjaman lah, you bagi pinjaman ke orang. Okay, and the borrower didn't pay you. Okay, so kat sini, the interest payment, the coupon payment is part of payment of debt. So dia kena bayar. So if you fail to meet obligation, you fail to pay, you are entitled to be brought to the court lah. Okay, tetapi kalau stock punya issuance, the dividend is not compulsory. Okay, based on the performance of the bank, the performance of the company. So kalau company tu perform well, dia boleh bayar dividend. Tapi kalau tahun tu dia rugi contohnya, they don't have to pay the dividend that year. It's not compulsory. Tetapi for bond issuance, regardless of the performance, kalau performance you teruk tentu dari segi profits, you still have to pay. So that's the difference lah. So kalau you tak bayar, you can be sued by the holders, by the bond holders because of the default payment. And bila you tak bayar and bila you default, dia akan affect your credit rating ataupun the bond rating. So your bond rating akan turun rating and your company punya rating pun akan turun as a whole. Okay, dia akan affect your credit punya credibility lah. Okay, so as a issuer, you kena pastikan you gonna have a stable income sebab payment ni akan consistent setiap tahun, fix. Okay, so they have to be very careful lah in strategizing how to make payments. And another point is about the principal amount. Ingat tadi konsep dia, you have to pay the interest every year. Tetapi the principal, the total value tu kalau dia bagi pinjam 100 juta tadi, so the 100 million needs to be paid at maturity at one go. Lump sum, dia bukan bayar installment 100 juta tu setiap tahun, tak. Okay, kalau kita pinjam from the bank for, let's say kita beli kereta for car financing, we go to the bank for 100k worth of car. 1,000. Ambil lah 100k worth of, for a car. So pinjam 100,000, then 100,000 ni will be divided together with interest ataupun profit rates as part of your loans, and then you have to pay back within 9 years contohnya. So setiap tahun, setiap bulan you're gonna pay the principal together with the interest. That's the concept of car financing ataupun home financing. Tapi bond, you pinjam 100 million, okay, so every year you just pay the interest just the coupon. So what happened to the principal? You just gonna pay the principal at the end, at maturity. And because of this, a huge amount of principal akan menyebabkan a lot of ataupun substantial cash outflow at maturity lah. So again, kalau you tak properly manage your fund at maturity, nanti you tak ada duit nak bayar balik to the bondholders lah. So therefore again, disadvantage kat sini, outflow dia akan keluar dengan besar lah at the end, at maturity. From investors point of view, like I said, investor suka bond ni sebab dia akan bagi kita steady stream of income, sebab return dia fix, okay, regardless of the economic situation, the market situation, regardless whatever happen to the company, you akan dapat return yang sama. Okay, cuma return dia selalunya bila dia fix ni, don't expect the return is to be high. Okay, return dia mungkin tak besar, like I said lah, 4%, 5%, 6% even. Okay, tetapi dia akan maintain all the time. So very safe. Okay, dari segi safety as investor, this is a safe investment. So that's why people like to invest in bond jugalah. And at least kalau bukan semua funding dia masuk dekat dalam bond, there's a portion to it. Okay, yang akan ada masuk dalam bond lah in order to get a steady return. Okay, bond prices also can fluctuate. So maknanya when the change in interest rates, the bond price can change as well. So maknanya the demand for bond boleh naik. So when there's an increase in demand for bond, the price can increase, and bila price increase, there's opportunity untuk capital gain. Kalau ingat konsep capital gain, there's a price appreciation, harga naik daripada harga yang you beli, then you can sell it at a higher price. Okay, so instead of you tunggu sampai dia mature, you can get early profit by selling it now. So that's another opportunity lah, and people like to invest because of opportunity as well. And in terms of priority and also claims, okay, from the company, usually bond holders will have early priority. Okay, maknanya dari segi payment, bondholders gonna receive their payment first. Coming back to sini tadi lah, the partial income statement, mungkin I tulis balik dekat sini priority ni. Again, I start daripada earning before interest and taxes, then tolak interest. Okay, so this is where the bond gonna receive. Bond akan terima dekat sini payment dia. Then jadi EBT kan, earning before tax, and then company kena bayar tax, then baru dapat net profit. Okay, this net profit adalah untung bersih. So lepas net profit declared, then they're gonna have to pay dividend. And dividend ni ada dua. They're gonna pay dividend to the preferred stockholders first, and then baru bayar kepada the common stockholders. So common stockholders ni adalah the shares yang traded dalam bursa Malaysia tu lah. So in terms of the ranking, as you can see, bond receive their payment much earlier. They're going to receive it semasa sebelum profit declared lagi. Whereas dividend untuk the preferred and also the common stockholders going to receive it after the profit declaration. Okay, so that's why in terms of the risk, okay, bond will be less risk sebab in terms of payment, dia akan terima much earlier. So selalunya tak ada masalah lah, unless company tu memang bermasalah. Kalau kat sini, level sini pun dah ada problem, apatah lagi dekat dividend for the shareholders lah. Alright, so usually if the company manage properly, usually dia akan bayar interest kat sini, cuma bila dah sampai dekat EBT, then there's a possibility of loss. Okay, so bond dah terima dah payment dia, tak ada issue, cuma for the stockholders, bila company tu loss, yeah, you might miss your dividend payment. So that's why dari segi risikonya, the bondholders will have less risk as compared to the preferred stockholders or even the common stockholders. So common stockholders yang paling tinggi lah risiko dia sebab dia dapat last, okay, selepas preferred stockholders. Okay, so bondholders number 1, preferred stockholders number 2, common stockholders will receive it last as number 3. Okay, so that's why advantage dekat situ lah, less risk. Okay, disadvantage number 1, the returns are fixed. As I mentioned, since the nature of bond is a fixed income investment, so even though the company perform well, profit tinggi, you akan terima return yang sama je. You will not get more. Okay, so your return just based on the fixed payment of coupon. Secondly, in terms of liquidity, dia tak sedang tak seliquid shares ataupun equity. So the process slightly longer, sometimes fine. So for stocks you nak jual, yes, most likely you're gonna get a buyer pretty much quickly. Okay, dalam beberapa minit, kalau tak jam lah, you can get a buyer. Tapi for bonds, sometimes slightly difficult. Okay, bondholders are not the owner. Kalau share, okay, if you become the shareholders, you are technically the owner. Tapi untuk bond, you are not the owner, you just lender, pemberi pinjaman saja. So therefore, you don't have voting rights. So voting right ni advantage untuk issuer, tetapi disadvantage untuk investor because you don't have voting rights. Okay, and bond is not a good hedge against inflation sebab inflation boleh naik, tapi kita punya return to fix, therefore kita punya income tu mungkin tak boleh beat the inflation rate. So this is not a good hedge lah. Unlike contoh kalau a good investment that can use to be untuk hedge ni, selalunya kita ambil paling extreme gold lah. Gold sebab inflation naik, the return, the value of gold will increase as well. Okay, tapi untuk bond, dia not a good hedge because when the inflation naik, kita punya return akan stuck dekat situ. So we're gonna lose our purchasing power lah for that matter, right? So why people invest? Like I said, number 1, predictable sebab income to fix. Therefore, you don't have to worry about your returns. It will be safe, tetapi don't expect high returns. That's number 1. Capital preservation sebab principal akan dibayar at maturity. Okay, so you're not gonna lose your principal. Unlike you invest in stocks contohnya, kalau you invest 100,000 dalam pasaran saham, that 100,000 can lose the values the very next day. Hari ni letak 100,000, esok tinggal 90,000, possible. Tapi kalau investment in bond, if you put 100,000 in bond, the 100,000 you're gonna receive it back at maturity. So setiap tahun you're gonna receive your payment of coupon, but at maturity you're gonna get back your 100,000. So they preserve lah your capital. People like to use it as diversification strategy because you're gonna receive a fixed return kan, so it's good to have some sort like a safety net punya investment. Priority, I dah mention tadi, dari segi your claims, you're gonna receive it earlier as compared to other shareholders. And you can match long-term liabilities lah for institution, especially the institutional investors like EPF, insurance companies, other pension funds like to invest in bond as well untuk dapatkan portion of fixed return dekat sini. Okay, some basic features of bonds. Okay, as I mentioned, the returns are fixed. The coupon ni apa? Coupon ni interest. And usually they're gonna pay it either annually or semi-annually. Okay, annually or semi-annually. One of the measurement when we measure bond is called the current yield, the CY, current yield. It's based on the income relative to the bond's current price. So that's why for current yield, nanti kejap lagi kalau you tengok formula dia, it is coupon payment. You're gonna divide dengan the market price of bond. Okay, market price of bond. So and you divide the value of coupon sebab coupon ni fix. Kalau kita bahagi dengan the par value, then you're going to get the yield of the bond, which is the coupon. Tapi to get the actual yield for current situation, we're going to divide it against the market price. So market price of the bond can increase, can decrease. Okay, so par value usually in Malaysia is 1,000 ringgit. So meaning during the launch, mungkin dia akan jual pada harga 1,000 ringgit. And in the future, okay, throughout the maturity time tu, sampai nak maturity, the price can go up above 1,000 or can go down below 1,000. And that's why bila kita nak calculate the current yield, we have to use the market price of the bond, not the par value. Okay, maturity date, macam cakap tadi, dia long term, and the redemption for the principal will happen at the maturity. And satu lagi measurement selain daripada current yield is called the yield to maturity, YTM. This is the rate of return with the assumption you're going to keep your investment until maturity. Okay, until maturity. So this YTM can be measured as well. Okay, dia ada formula dia lah. Yield to maturity, formula dia is based on the coupon plus the par value minus the market price by years to maturity. Then we're going to divide everything by the average of prices. Okay, this is the par value, PV par value 1,000 tu, plus the market price. And then we're going to divide by 2. Okay, so this is the formula for yield to maturity. So we're going to look back at revisit this formula later when we do our calculation. Okay, and in terms of calculation, I'm going to share with you how to calculate based on the formula. That's number one. Or secondly, if you have financial calculator, I'm going to share with you how to calculate using calculator, which will be much simpler, much faster, and much easier lah. Okay, so I'm going to give you both. So kalau you ada financial calculator, especially Casio FC200 yang macam saya cakap sebelum ni lah, it will be much easier lah. So there are some special features of the bond. There are some bonds yang callable. Callable ni bermaksud bond that can be called ataupun can be redeemed before maturity. So sepatutnya bond boleh last for 5 to 30 years. I bagi example tadi kan. So callable means before its actual maturity, the issuer can redeem back the bond. Maknanya dia bayar everything. Maknanya dia settle everything before the maturity. Okay, this is for the issuer lah. And then they have sinking funds as well. Sinking fund ni adalah types of fund the issuer use to build up their capital in order for them to make payment at maturity. So sinking fund ni adalah fund yang diguna pakai with the intention to build their fund untuk bayar the principal. Sebab principal, I bagi example tadi 100 million kan. So 100 million tu huge. So if they don't have sinking fund, dia kena guna account lain untuk bayar. So if they have sinking fund ni boleh diguna pakai lah. Dia simpan sikit-sikit kat dalam tu. And they're going to use it to make payments. So these are among the examples, okay, of the returns of bond. Especially ni government bond lah. If it's 3 years to 5 years, the rate of return around 3.5%. So maknanya you can expect a quite basic ataupun I can say low return 3.5%. Okay, tapi kalau dia slightly longer, okay, let's say example 30 tahun tu they can give us about 4%. So that's why I said dia punya return tak tinggi, tetapi it will be fixed. Okay, it will be fixed. And this is based on government bond. Okay, government bond. So untuk corporate bond mungkin berbeza sikit lah dia punya rate of returns. So mechanics ada cerita tadi, they have two parties, the issuer and also the lender, the investor. So issuer needs money. Okay, need of capital, katakanlah dia need 100 million kat sini. Ada bagi contoh tadi kan. So the issuer akan jual the bond to the investors. So investors ni ada ramai lah. Okay, investors ni can be institution, it can be retail, maknanya individual investors. Okay, so investor ni akan bagi duit lah. They will hand over the cash to the borrower. So they're going to receive this 100 million. Okay, so issuer will pay the principal at maturity, okay, principal at maturity, and also the coupon, the coupon to the investor. So this is annually ataupun semi-annually. Principal ni akan dibayar at maturity. Okay, so basically that's how the money flows lah from one party to another party. So the price of bond can change, as I mentioned, usually due to the market demand and supply. So I just nak highlight how the definition ataupun the terms that we use when the price of bond is higher than the par value. Ingat par value dia tadi berapa? Par value dia RM1,000. Okay, so when the price is above 1,000, we call them premium bond. Kalau price dia below RM1,000, you will call discount bond. Okay, this occurs when the market interest rates are above. Dan bila market interest rate lagi tinggi daripada bond, people akan demand kurang kepada bond. Sebab why we invest in bond when we can invest dekat tempat lain in the market, because the interest rate dekat market lagi tinggi. So bond punya rate diconsider sebagai murah during those time. So therefore the demand for bond will be less, and therefore the price akan turun juga below the par value. Okay, so that's how the price behavior of a bond works. Okay, so macam ni lah. So when the market interest rates goes down, so kat atas ni makin tinggi makin rendah rate dia. Katakanlah bond punya rate adalah 10% contoh. So when the price in the market less than 10%, so the demand for bond akan naik. Sebab ramai orang nak beli bond sebab bond bagi kita 10%. Whereas market rates yang lain lagi rendah. So therefore the demand for bond will increase and the price of bond will increase as well, becomes premium bond. Okay, price 10% is higher than 8% contoh. Tapi if the price of bond is when the market interest rate is higher than the bonds coupon, contoh kat sini the coupon 10%, but others can give us 12%, so the demand for bond will less and will cause the price of the bond to go below 1,000 ringgit and become the discount bond. So this is the behavior for bond lah, depending on the other instruments punya performance. Okay, callable ada mention tadi some of the bond can be called, so therefore bila dia boleh call, the issuer needs to pay compensation. So compensation tu dipanggil the premium, call premium. So call premium akan added together with the par value to compensate bondholders. So combination of par and the call premium will become the call price. So call price adalah price par value together with the premium. So price, the call price ni akan dibayar kepada investor, which is the bondholders, in order for the issuer redeem prior to maturity. Okay, yang lain ni baca lah. So low coupon bond are more sensitive to interest rate changes, because bila market move higher, automatically the demand untuk low coupon bond ni akan jadi very fragile lah. Okay, so dia lagi sensitif lah. So when the market increase, the low coupon bond ni selalunya akan menyebabkan demand dia terlalu rendah and they have to sell it at a lower price. So the price change very drastically. Tapi kalau higher coupon, selalunya kurang sikit lah sensitivity dia. Okay, example here, 2% coupon bond reacts more than 10% coupon bond. Okay, so maybe I wrap up dengan types of bond. As I said, generally the categories, kita ada corporate dengan government. So government termasuklah Malaysian Government Securities, and for Islamic dipanggil GII, Government Investment Issuance. Okay, and from economic point of view, government bonds ni walaupun selalunya rate dia tak tinggi, tetapi from specification ataupun labeling, classification, bonds daripada government ni selalunya di label sebagai risk free. Risk free maksudnya risiko dia adalah 0%. So that's why as investor, they like to have government bond as part of their portfolio. because overall risiko dia akan berkurang lah, sebab when we talk about, kita dah belajar risk and return sebelum ni kan. So if you have some form of zero risk ataupun risk free returns from your overall portfolio, dia akan mengurangkan your risk for overall. So that's why as part of your portfolio, you can have the government bond in order to reduce, especially when we talk about institutional investor. And we also have agency bond. Agency bond ni selalunya issued by government linked companies. So GLC ni adalah government linked company. So we have Cagamas and also Khazanah yang basically a government investment arms. Macam contohnya Khazanah lah. Khazanah ni is government punya investment arm company. So dia akan invest, okay, dengan intention to get profits. Okay, kalau government agency like kementerian, selalunya dia punya fokus adalah kepada kebajikan, okay, not for profits. Tapi untuk agencies like Cagamas dan Khazanah, purpose dia memang untuk buat profits. Okay, and then we have the corporate bonds juga. Okay, corporate bonds. So corporate bond ni adalah company-company lah, issued by firms. And we have labeling of secured dengan unsecured. So perbezaan perkataan secured dengan unsecured ni adalah in terms of collateral. Okay, kalau the secured bond is backed by collateral, maknanya ada cagaran security. Tapi kalau dia unsecured, without collateral. Okay, without collateral. So usually secured ni lagi tinggi lah dia punya returns as compared to unsecured. Okay, and then dia ada juga the types of yang dipanggil sebagai zero coupon and also convertible. Zero coupon means there's no coupon payment, cuma dia akan jual at discount. They're going to sell it at discount because at maturity the price will go back to par value, which is 1,000. So dia tak bayar coupon every year, tetapi dia akan jual the bond at cheaper price. Okay, contohlah par value is 1,000 kan, so meaning masa dia launch, dia jual lah pada harga RM800 for one certificate. So at maturity, you're going to receive back 1,000. So your profits comes from the price difference tadi. So you beli pada harga 800 and then you're going to get 1,000 at maturity. So that's zero coupon. And convertible pula is the types of bond that allows you to convert into equity. Maknanya you beli bond tetapi you boleh convert into shares. Okay, so that's convertible bond lah. Okay, and lastly, kita panggil dia junk bonds. Okay, junk bond ni adalah jenis bond yang risiko dia tinggi, but it will offer us higher returns. Okay, because of their rating quite low, rating of the bond low, so therefore they have to pay you higher profits, and because of that, they are considered as a high yield bond, tetapi datang dengan risiko yang tinggi. Okay, so ni the quick information lah relating to the ESG, Sovereign USD Sustainability in 2021, and the value now reached 19 billion ringgit. So, yang tu adalah Commission of Malaysia punya report lah in 2024. Lain nanti you baca, ada highlight tadi, so you can read the types sampai secured, on, so read together with these factors of things. So we're going to start at ratings, the concept of ratings, but very important, crucial, how will be rated, who are the rating agencies, and what implication of ratings in the interest. Okay, so kita akan continue this slide number 34 tomorrow, and kita akan wrap dengan calculation lah, banyak ini ada dalam something slide kat belakang ni. So that's about it for today. Ni yang buat lambat nak masuk ni memang